Every year, one of the biggest debates is who the most valuable player is. By the end of the year, it seems like it is always two players battling neck and neck until either an injury or slow second half all but seals the award for one player. But there are always the years where more than one player puts on an all-time season that causes voters and fans to become split in their voting. Everyone has their own criteria for what makes the most valuable player. Some value team success and usually vote for the best player on the best team, while others don't care about the team's record whatsoever. The general consensus also evolves over time, and what was once a definitive way to evaluate players gets left behind for better metrics. There are many seasons where even the most casual fans can look at the MVP and wonder just what the HE quadruple baseball bats the voters were thinking when they decided one player to be the greatest among their peers. I'm a big fan of oxymorons, so I wanted to find the biggest one in baseball, the worst MVP in baseball history. Before I start talking about any of the candidates, I want to say none of these players had bad seasons. While award voting hasn't always chosen the best player, I didn't find any MVP season that appears to be below average or poor. Each of these players were voted MVP for one reason or another, but the rankings get pretty steep when starting to compare every MVP season ever. I'm not calling any of these players bad, it's just the nature of any list that someone has to be at the bottom. I will be going over a few different players that could be deemed the worst MVP ever based on the reason mentioned before introducing them. I will do my best to give the full picture of what they did so great that won them the award while poking holes in their game to weed out the worst among them. I will be claiming each player the worst MVP ever due to one reason or another, but it is up to you and how you value an MVP to decide who is truly the worst. We will start off with the easiest category to choose the worst MVP because it is as simple as going to the list of MVPs on Baseball Reference and sorting by WAR to find the player who earned the least in his MVP campaign. In 1979, Willie Stargell stood alone as the MVP with the lowest WAR ever, which is 2.5. Even Jose Abreu and Freddie Freeman surpassed him in their shortened 60-game 2020 MVP seasons. Stargell earned the co-NL MVP alongside Keith Hernandez after posting a 281, 352, and 552 slash line for a 904 OPS while putting up 32 home runs, 82 RBIs, and 19 doubles in 126 games. In the 1979 season, Stargell not only won the regular season MVP, but also the NLCS and World Series MVP. Look away now, Guardian fans, while guiding his team back from down 3-1 to become world champions all at the age of 39. Stargell posted a season far from being bad, but it does raise a question of why his WAR was so low. It simply comes down to two things: defense and time played. Stargell is one of the most prolific power bats of all time, but was never one to be known for his glove. Being a below average defensive first baseman generated a -1 defensive WAR in that season. The other thing bringing down his value is that he only played 126 games. Nowadays, a player is all but barred from winning the award if he doesn't play at least 140. Just look at Christian Yelich's unbelievable 2019 season where he posted a mind-boggling slash line of 329, 429, and 671 for a whopping 1.1 OPS and 179 OPS plus. But after an unfortunate injury cost him the rest of his season, he would only appear in 130 games and fell just short to Cody Bellinger. Bellinger has always been great defensively and played 26 more games that year, so he more than deserved it, but it does show the difference in what we weigh in MVP voting today. Getting back to Stargell, a player of his caliber meant more than just what the stat sheet said, and he contributed value to his team even while just sitting in the dugout. His role as a leader helped the Pirates become a cultural phenomenon across the country and pushed them into the history books. So while WAR may rank him as the worst MVP ever, he would not be my vote. Many people usually consider the worst MVP ever not by the player to win the award with the worst season, but who is the most undeserving when compared to who they won the award over. This becomes more subjective than simply just comparing WAR because it isn't as simple as ranking players with one stat. Everyone has at least one player in mind when hearing about a snubbed MVP. Many think Judge deserved it in his rookie year. Mike Trout was arguably snubbed 3 different times for the award. As our collective baseball knowledge has grown, so does our realization realization that players get overlooked countless times while being voted for the greatest individual award in the sport. Among the players to win the award, with others more deserving, the two that stand out the most are Juan Gonzalez and Mickey Cochrane. While they both won the award, the likes of Ken Griffey Jr. and Lou Gehrig were just leagues above them in terms of production in their respective seasons. Taking place in 1996, Juan Gonzalez would go on to win his first of 2 MVP awards, posting an impressive showing at the plate with a slash line of .314, .368, and .643 with 47 home runs. But when stacked against the kid's stat line of .303, .392, and .628 with 49 home runs, before even mentioning having more stolen bases and a vastly superior glove in the outfield, it leaves you scratching your head as to why Griffey finished all the way back in 4th place during the MVP voting. An even bigger gap in production at the plate came in 1934 when Mickey Cochrane would post a very respectable slash line of .320, .428, and .412 while hitting 2 home runs, but when compared to Lou Gehrig's monster year producing a slash line of .363, .465, and .706 for a mind-boggling 1.172 OPS, it becomes clear that the players were just in different leagues at the plate. Both seasons had parallels of having 2 of the greatest players ever missing out on extra hardware. While Gehrig had already won the award, Griffey was still without it until the next season, so it isn't as if the voters were getting voter fatigue while considering them for the award. I think both have a case for the 2 worst MVPs in terms of who they were voted over, but I think when considering something like OPS Plus that considers a run environment a player was in, makes it easier to compare seasons from different eras. Lou Gehrig's 207 OPS Plus versus Ken Griffey's 154 shows that Gehrig was just head and shoulders above his competition. That being said, Griffey did have much more value on the defensive side, having one of the best gloves in the league in center, and played at a time when those around him had more juice in them than an orange, while he himself was clean. Coming back to analyze just the players that won the award brings us to finding out who the worst hitter to win the award has been. I won't be considering defense in this just because it is much easier to just be considering offensive stats due to the difficulty in analyzing fielding and the differences in position. For me, this was clear cut in looking at one season, but the man behind it holds more interests than what his stats may jump out as. In 1944, Marty Marion would go home with the award after beating out Bill Nicholson by only 1 point in the voting, while helping the Cardinals take home their 5th World Series. His season comes as an oddity, where he posted an OPS Plus of 90 while having a slash line of .267, .324, and .362 while hitting out 6 home runs, sporting the 2nd lowest batting average, on-base percentage, and slugging among all MVPs ever. The only MVP to have a lower batting average was Ohtani with .257, which I don't think I have to explain how he overcame that. Zoilo Versales is the only player with a lower OBP with .319, but led the league in both doubles and triples the year he won. And finally, the player with the lowest slugging ever was Johnny Evers with .338, but had an on-base percentage of .390 to make up for it. But what Marion lacked at the plate more than made up for it as a player with his defense. He had unusually long arms that allowed him to make plays that would have been out of reach for other players at the shortstop position. He's nicknamed the Octopus for his arms and for the ability to seemingly scoop up every baseball that came to him. We can't discuss the worst MVPs without mentioning the players that only play once a week. Pitchers have always had an extremely tough time trying to win the MVP award due to the fact that they only ever play once every 5 games as a starter and once every 2 or 3 games as a reliever. The common pitcher brought up when discussing the strangest MVP ever to win is Dennis Eckersley, who in 1992 pitched 80 innings, a 1.91 ERA ball while striking out 93 batters in 69 games. While he did lead the league in saves with 51, it is crazy to think that someone only had less than 10 games worth of innings and came away as the most valuable player. Only Raleigh Fingers and Willie Hernandez won both the Cy Young and the MVP before, and only Eric Gagne has won the Cy Young as a reliever since. The lack of value mostly just comes in the form of lack of innings pitched. His talent was never a question, as anyone would want him to close games for their team, but as we have grown as a baseball audience, it has become more obvious that sometimes the greatest ability is availability. In the playoffs, Eckersley would go on to give up a game-tying home run to Roberto Alomar in Game 4 of the ALCS and would be eliminated in that series. He would lead the league in saves twice after only becoming a relief pitcher after 11 years as a starter. It is up to you who the worst MVP is, but I hope I presented a few different candidates depending on what you value. While these players may not have had the most eye-popping stats, it is hard to say any of them had a bad season. They played to their best abilities and came away with the award, so if you find yourself upset that a player was snubbed, direct it towards the voters and still appreciate those who were voted the winner. I hope I didn't come across as insulting to any of these players and encourage you to mention anyone else I didn't. Our collective knowledge of what makes a valuable baseball player has grown greatly over the course of the life of baseball, and it has been amazing for the game. It's like Mickey Mantle said, it's unbelievable how much you don't know about the game you've been playing all your life.